I'm Hailey, 32 years old, and I've always believed family is everything. Growing up, our holiday gatherings filled me with excitement and warmth. Until they didn't. What started as joyful celebrations slowly transformed into exercises in humiliation. As I watched my relatives exchange lavish presents while handing me afterthoughts. The confusion then hurt crept in gradually. I never expected to fight back. But sometimes even the most patient people reach their breaking point. Let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button, and stick around for the ultimate revenge gift exchange you won't want to miss. Family has always been central to my life. Growing up in a close-knit, extended family in suburban Michigan, our gatherings were legendary. My parents, Thomas and Judith, Aunt Linda, and Uncle Robert, and my cousins Sarah and Amanda were constants in my life. We celebrated everything together: birthdays, holidays, graduations, promotions, you name it. And with each celebration came the ritual everyone anticipated most: the gift exchange. From an early age, I learned that in our family, gifts weren't just tokens. They were statements of love, appreciation, and value. My mother would spend months planning the perfect presents for everyone. I watched her agonize over finding Uncle Robert the vintage fishing lure he once mentioned, or tracking down the limited edition cookbook Aunt Linda had eyed. This attention to detail was the gold standard I inherited. As I grew older, I approached gift giving with the same dedication. I kept notes throughout the year whenever someone mentioned something they wanted. I researched my family members' hobbies and interests, making sure each gift resonated with the recipient. Though my salary as a high school art teacher wasn't extravagant, I budgeted carefully to ensure my presents were thoughtful and meaningful. The first time I noticed something was off was at Christmas 5 years ago. We gathered at my parents' home, the living room transformed by twinkling lights and the scent of pine. The gift exchange began with its usual excitement. My cousin Sarah unwrapped a small velvet box from Aunt Linda and squealed with delight at the sapphire earrings that matched her eyes perfectly. Uncle Robert received a custom leather golf bag from my parents, with his initials embossed on the side. Even Amanda, who was going through a difficult divorce, was gifted a weekend spa retreat to help her relax. Then came my turn. I opened a small, lightweight package from Aunt Linda and Uncle Robert. Inside was a plastic ornament from the dollar store still bearing its bright yellow clearance sticker. I smiled through my confusion, thanking them warmly. Maybe they didn't know what I liked. Maybe money was tight this year. But then I watched them hand my father an expensive bottle of 30-year-old scotch he had been coveting. My parents' gift to me was a generic bath set still wrapped in cellophane, with a faded price tag from last year's after-Christmas sale. I put on my best smile, expressing gratitude, while quietly wondering if they had forgotten all the hints I had dropped about art supplies I needed for a new project. Later that same evening, they presented Sarah with a designer wallet she had been wanting. I didn't say anything. I told myself not to be materialistic. The value of a gift shouldn't matter. It was the thought that counted after all. But that was precisely what bothered me: the thought or apparent lack thereof behind the gifts I received compared to those given to everyone else. I dismissed my feelings, assuming it was just an off year. Perhaps everyone had been busy, and I was being overly sensitive. But as the next celebration approached Aunt Linda's 60th birthday, I noticed the pattern repeating. I spent weeks creating a custom portrait of her beloved childhood home from an old photograph, framing it beautifully. My gift was met with a quick thanks before she moved on to exclaim over the diamond bracelet from my parents and the European river cruise from Uncle Robert. When my birthday came around a month later, Aunt Linda gave me a coffee mug with a cartoon cat, the type you'd grab last minute from a gas station. It still had a barcode sticker on the bottom. Uncle Robert forgot entirely. My parents gave me a scarf that still had a gift tag to someone named Jennifer attached to it, a regift they hadn't even bothered to check. That Christmas, I watched more carefully. Sarah received a high-end tablet. Amanda got premium concert tickets. My parents exchanged luxury watches. Uncle Robert received custom golf clubs. And I unwrapped a pack of multicolored pens, with half the colors already dried out. As the cycle continued, I began to see the pattern with painful clarity. It wasn't random, it wasn't coincidence. Somehow I had become the family member who wasn't worth the effort or expense. I just didn't understand why. Over the next 3 years, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Each family celebration brought more evidence of the disparity. For my 30th birthday, while my cousin Sarah received a weekend trip to New York, including Broadway tickets, I got a drugstore picture frame that still had the clearance tag attached. When Amanda finished her master's degree, the family pooled together to buy her a MacBook Pro. When I had my first professional art exhibition, I received a text message saying congrats and a mug that said world's best teacher, despite the fact that I had mentioned my exhibition for months. The gifts themselves told a story of thoughtlessness. One Christmas, Uncle Robert gave me a paperback novel that not only was clearly used, but had another person's name written inside the cover. Aunt Linda once gifted me a calendar that was already 10 months into the year. My parents gave me a blouse 3 sizes too large, then seemed confused when I mentioned it didn't fit. Meanwhile, I watched as they exchanged extravagant presents with each other. My parents surprised Aunt Linda with a weekend spa getaway for her and her friends. Uncle Robert received custom golf clubs that my father had specially ordered from a craftsman in Scotland. Sarah got a designer handbag that I knew cost well over $1,000 because I had looked at the same one for myself before deciding it was way beyond my budget. One evening, I was helping my mother in the kitchen before a family dinner when I overheard a conversation between her and Aunt Linda in the next room. "Did you find something for Sarah's birthday next month?" my mother asked. "Yes, I found those noise-canceling headphones she's been wanting. They were pricey, but worth it. She's going to love them," Aunt Linda replied. "That's wonderful." Robert and I went in together on a weekend trip to that vineyard resort she mentioned. "What about Hailey's birthday?" "It's next week." There was a pause before Aunt Linda answered. "Oh, I picked up some scented candles from the grocery store. They were on clearance. She likes candles, right? Or was it Amanda who likes candles? Either way, it'll be fine." My mother laughed. "That works. I found a journal in my gift drawer I never used. I'll just wrap that up." I stood frozen dish towel in hand as the truth I had suspected was confirmed. The disparity wasn't accidental. They were deliberately spending time, money, and thought on gifts for everyone except me. My boyfriend James was the first to point out the pattern explicitly. After attending a family Easter gathering where I received a half-empty bottle of lotion while watching my cousins unwrap expensive electronics, he couldn't stay silent anymore. "Hailey, do you notice how differently they treat you?" he asked on the drive home. "The gifts they give you compared to everyone else. It's like they're not even trying to hide it." "Maybe they just don't know what I like," I suggested weakly. "You've been dropping hints about that pottery workshop for months. Your mom even asked you to send her the link, which you did. Then she got Sarah those expensive concert tickets instead and gave you, what was it again? A magnetic notepad for the refrigerator," I mumbled. "It had puppies on it." "Exactly. And it's been this way for years. It's not about the money, it's about the thought. They're not thinking about you at all." His words hit hard because I knew he was right. Still, I decided to try addressing it directly. The next day I called my mother and tried to have an honest conversation. "Mom, I've noticed something about family gifts. It seems like everyone gets really thoughtful, often expensive presents, but I usually get something less considered. Is there a reason for that?" The silence on the other end of the line lasted so long, I thought we had lost connection. "You're being too sensitive, Hailey," she finally replied. "Not everything is about price tags. You should be grateful for whatever you receive. It's not about the money, Mom. Last Christmas, Sarah got those custom earrings she had been wanting. I got a used book with someone else's name written inside it. Robert probably didn't notice that when he bought it. You're making a big deal out of nothing. This kind of materialism isn't attractive, Hailey." The conversation ended with me feeling worse than before. Not only was the disparity real, but now I was being made to feel greedy and ungrateful for noticing it. That night I cried myself to sleep, feeling invisible in my own family. The people who were supposed to value me the most seemed to value me the least. The emotional impact of being consistently devalued by my own family began to take a serious toll. I started experiencing insomnia before family gatherings, lying awake rehearsing how I would react when I inevitably received another thoughtless gift while watching everyone else open carefully selected presents. My stomach would knot as celebrations approached, the anticipation of humiliation, overshadowing any joy I might feel about seeing family. At James's suggestion, I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Martinez. In one particularly revealing session, she asked me to talk about when I first noticed the gift disparity. Has your family always treated you differently, or can you remember when things changed? She asked. Gist. I closed my eyes, thinking back to childhood celebrations. Images flooded back of birthday parties where my parents went all out with themed decorations. I remembered my 10th birthday when they surprised me with the art set I had been dreaming about for months. My 16th when Aunt Linda and Uncle Robert contributed to my first professional camera because they knew I loved photography. No, it wasn't always like this, I realized aloud. When I was younger, they put thought into my gifts. They celebrated my interests. Something changed when I became an adult. What else changed around that time? Dr. Martinez prompted. I thought about my cousins. Sarah had gone into finance and was making a six-figure salary by 25. Amanda had married a successful businessman before her divorce. I had chosen to become a high school art teacher, a career I loved, but that would never make me wealthy. I think it might be because I'm not as financially successful as my cousins. My family values material success a lot. When I chose art education instead of a more lucrative field, something shifted. The realization was painful but illuminating. My family measured worth in dollars, and by their metric, I was worth less. It wasn't personal in the sense of disliking me. It was worse. It was that they valued me less because of my career choice and income. This insight didn't make their behavior hurt any less, but it helped me understand that their actions reflected their flawed value system, not my actual worth as a person. Around the same time, I was making significant progress in my art career outside of my teaching job. I had been selected for a prestigious local exhibition featuring my series exploring human connection through shared spaces. The exhibition opening was a major milestone for me professionally. I sent invitations to my entire family weeks in advance. None of them came. My mother texted an hour before saying something had come up. The others didn't even respond to the invitation. James and my non-family friends showed up with flowers and champagne, celebrating this achievement that my family couldn't be bothered to acknowledge. 2 weeks later was my cousin Sarah's wedding. The family pulled out all the stops. Aunt Linda spoke tearfully about how proud she was. My father gave an emotional toast about family legacy. Everyone contributed lavishly to the wedding registry. I spent a month's salary on a beautiful serving set from their registry, wrapping it with care. At the wedding reception, my mother approached me. Did you see the amazing housewarming gifts everyone gave Sarah and Michael? Your father and I got them that gorgeous sectional sofa they wanted. Linda and Robert are paying for their honeymoon in Bali. Isn't that wonderful? She didn't mention my art exhibition. She didn't ask how it went. It was as if it had never happened. I decided to confide in my cousin Amanda. We had been close as children, and she'd always seemed more perceptive than the rest of the family. We met for coffee one rainy afternoon. Have you ever noticed that everyone in the family gets amazing gifts except me? I asked after gathering my courage. Amanda looked uncomfortable, stirring her latte and avoiding my eyes. Yeah, I've noticed, she finally admitted. It's been going on for years. Why did I do something wrong? She sighed. It's not you, Hailey. It's them. Aunt Judith and Uncle Thomas always comment on how you chose the less practical path with your art teaching. Linda and Robert follow their lead. Sarah and I have talked about how weird it is, but neither of us knew how to bring it up. So everyone knows and no one said anything. It's easier not to rock the boat, Amanda said apologetically. You know how they get when anyone challenges them. The confirmation that others had noticed but stayed silent added another layer of hurt. It wasn't just in my head. The disparity was real, acknowledged, and allowed to continue. The final breaking point came when I accidentally discovered the extent of the inequality. While helping my mother organize her home office, I came across a notebook where she tracked gift expenses. Flipping through it, my heart sank as I saw the numbers in black and white. Birthday gift for Sarah, $350. Christmas gift for Amanda, $275. Anniversary gift for Linda and Robert, $500. Birthday gift for Hailey, $12.99. Page after page showed the same pattern. They weren't just giving me less thoughtful gifts, they had an actual budget. Everyone else got hundreds of dollars. I got under $20 every single time. That same day, as I was helping my mother sort through some storage boxes, I found a brand new designer wallet. It looked familiar, and then I realized it was identical to one I had mentioned wanting months ago. "Oh, that's for Sarah's birthday next month," my mother said when she noticed me looking at it. "She's been wanting one like that." I stood holding the wallet, remembering how I had shown my mother the exact same one online, saying it was perfect for organizing all my art receipts. Later that evening, I was sorting through a donation box when I found a small gift bag with tissue paper. Inside was a keychain with my initial H on it. Attached was a small tag that read, "To Jessica, Merry Christmas from Linda." I stared at the keychain, understanding dawning. This was a regift that Aunt Linda had received didn't want and had put in the donation pile. But seeing my initial, my mother had pulled it out to give to me for the upcoming holiday instead of donating it as intended. I felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, but now it was joined by something new: determination. This had gone on long enough. If my family wanted to send the message that I wasn't worth their thought or effort, perhaps it was time I sent a message of my own. Over the next few days, I couldn't shake the feelings that had crystallized after finding that evidence. Anger, hurt, and determination swirled together into a potent cocktail of emotion that demanded action. I invited James and my best friend Zoe over for dinner to help me process. "I don't know what to do anymore," I confessed as we sat around my kitchen table. "I've tried ignoring it. I've tried talking directly to my mother about it. Nothing changes." Zoe, always the pragmatist, asked, "What are your options? Really break it down." I took a deep breath. 1, I could try confronting the entire family together. 2, I could stop giving them thoughtful gifts since they don't appreciate the effort. 3, I could just stop attending family gatherings altogether. Option 1 seems unlikely to work if your mom already dismissed you, James pointed out. And option 3 punishes you as much as them. You've said you still value family connection despite everything. "What about a fourth option?" Zoe suggested, a gleam in her eye. "What if you gave them a taste of their own medicine, but with a twist that makes the point impossible to ignore?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if your gifts to them were just as thoughtful as theirs to you? But instead of just being cheap, they were specifically designed to reflect how little thought they put into your gifts." The idea took root immediately. I'd been raised to be considerate, to turn the other cheek, to be the bigger person. But years of being devalued had worn down my patience. Maybe it was time for a different approach. I could give them gifts that seemed thoughtful on the surface but actually highlight their behavior, I said slowly as the idea developed. "Not just random cheap items, but things that send a message." "Exactly," Zoe nodded. "The kind of gifts that make it impossible for them to miss the point, but that they can't easily dismiss as just being petty." Over the next few hours, Operation Thoughtful Gifts took shape. The plan was simple, yet nuanced. For the upcoming Christmas gathering, I would create custom gifts for each family member that reflected the thoughtlessness they had shown me while appearing on the surface, to be personalized. The next day, I began researching each family member more deeply than I ever had for their regular gifts. But this time, I wasn't looking for their likes and interests. I was cataloging their insecurities, pet peeves, and the things they actively disliked or found embarrassing. As I worked, I wrestled with whether this approach was too petty. Was I stooping to their level? Was there a more mature way to handle the situation? But each time these doubts crept in, I remembered the years of hurt, the explicit evidence of their calculated devaluation, and the way they had dismissed my feelings when I tried to address it directly. "This isn't about revenge," I told James as we brainstormed ideas. "It's about holding up a mirror so they can see what they've been doing. Sometimes people don't recognize their behavior until they experience it themselves." For Aunt Linda, the family gossip who prided herself on her public image, I had the perfect plan. I researched organizations whose missions directly opposed causes she vocally supported at her country club. I found a particularly controversial environmental group that advocated against the luxury developments she invested in. I made a donation in her name, ensuring she would receive regular mail and email updates about their activities, opposing everything she stood for. For Uncle Robert, who was obsessed with his social media presence but frequently made inappropriate comments he later regretted, I compiled a beautifully bound book of screenshots. Every embarrassing post, every politically incorrect comment, every time he'd inserted his foot firmly in his mouth online, preserved in a high-quality photo book titled Robert's Greatest Hits, the Online Edition. For my cousin Sarah, I had something special in mind. 3 years ago, she had borrowed a necklace I inherited from my grandmother. Despite numerous requests for its return, she always had an excuse for why she couldn't find it all, while I'd seen her wearing it in social media photos. I planned to frame an enlarged photo of her wearing my grandmother's necklace with a small engraving that read, "Memories to Keep," just like Grandma's necklace. For my parents, I created a custom calendar. But instead of family photos each month featured a family event they had attended for my cousins, alongside an important event of mine they had missed complete with dates and descriptions. My art exhibition opening opposite Sarah's company party they had driven 3 hours to attend. My teaching award ceremony alongside Amanda's housewarming they had helped plan. As I worked on these gifts, I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me was concerned I was crossing a line. Another part felt a sense of justice in finally standing up for myself, even in this unconventional way. I consulted with Dr. Martinez, who neither encouraged nor discouraged my plan. "What are you hoping to achieve with this approach?" she asked. "I want them to feel what I've felt," I admitted. The hurt, the confusion, the sense of being devalued. But I also want them to see the pattern. Maybe if they experience it directly, they'll understand what they've been doing all these years. And if they react with anger instead of understanding, I considered this, then at least I'll have stood up for myself instead of continuing to accept their treatment silently. Either way, something in our family dynamic needs to change. As Christmas approached, I wrapped each gift with beautiful paper and elaborate bows, far more effort than had ever been put into wrapping my gifts. Each package looked stunning on the outside, a sharp contrast to the message contained within. The night before the gathering, James helped me load the gifts into my car. He gave me a long hug and said, "Whatever happens tomorrow, I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. You deserve to be valued." I barely slept that night, oscillating between determination and doubt. Was I really going to go through with this? By morning, my resolve had solidified. Yes, I was. It was time for my family to receive the gifts they truly deserved. The Wilkins family Christmas gathering always took place at my parents' home, a tradition dating back to when I was a child. As I pulled into the driveway, the familiar scene greeted me. Twinkling lights adorned the porch. A wreath hung on the front door. Inside, I knew would be the 12-foot tree my father insisted on, despite my mother's complaints about pine needles. I sat in my car for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel. The elegantly wrapped packages on my back seat seemed to have a presence of their own, like live things waiting to be released. Taking a deep breath, I gathered my courage and my gifts. "Hailey, you're here." My mother greeted me with her usual enthusiasm, air kissing near my cheek to avoid smudging her makeup. Her eyes immediately went to the packages in my arms. "My goodness, you've gone all out this year." "It's Christmas," I replied with a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Everyone deserves a special gift." The house was already full. Uncle Robert stood by the fireplace, drink in hand, holding court with a story about his latest golf tournament. Aunt Linda was arranging appetizers on the dining room table, rearranging my mother's careful placement to her own liking. Sarah and Amanda sat on the couch, heads together over Sarah's phone, probably admiring photos from her recent tropical vacation. I placed my gifts under the tree, noting how they stood out among the others, with their elaborate bows and careful wrapping. Then I circulated, making the expected small talk, accepting the obligatory compliments on my dress, deflecting questions about whether I was still just teaching art or had found a real career yet. Dinner came and went in a blur of roast beef, my mother's famous Yorkshire pudding, and conversations that carefully danced around anything of substance. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. "Time for presents," my father announced, clapping his hands like an excited child. We gathered around the tree, taking our usual places in the family gift distribution hierarchy. My father played Santa, as he had since I was old enough to remember. The process always followed the same pattern. The best gifts, the ones everyone was most excited about, were saved for last to build anticipation. I watched as the first round of presents was distributed. Sarah received a designer scarf from my parents. Amanda unwrapped a set of luxury skincare products from Aunt Linda and Uncle Robert. My parents opened matching cashmere sweaters from my cousins. Then it was my turn. Aunt Linda handed me a small, hastily wrapped package. "Just a little something we picked up," she said dismissively. Inside was a grocery store candle with a clearance sticker partially peeled off but still visible. The price, $3.99, could still be read through the torn paper. "It's vanilla," Uncle Robert added unnecessarily. "Everyone likes vanilla." "Thank you," I said, keeping my voice even. "How thoughtful." My parents' gift to me was a refrigerator magnet shaped like a palette and a coffee mug that said "World's Best Teacher," the exact same gift they had given me the previous year. I wondered if they even remembered. The gift exchange continued. My cousins received expensive electronics. My parents opened a gift certificate for a weekend getaway from Uncle Robert and Aunt Linda. The disparity was as obvious as it had always been. But this year, instead of feeling hurt, I felt a strange calm. The moment I had been planning for was approaching. "Oh, Hailey brought gifts too," my father noted, reaching for my beautifully wrapped packages. "They look fancy." "I put extra thought into everyone's gifts this year," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the room. "I wanted each present to be truly personal, to show how well I know each of you, and how much attention I pay to what matters in your lives." A pleased murmur went through the room. Sarah looked up with actual interest for the first time that evening. "Aunt Linda and Uncle Robert, this one's for you," I said, handing them a heavy, beautifully wrapped box. They tore into it eagerly. Inside was an elegant certificate in a frame announcing that a donation had been made in their names to the Wetland Preservation Alliance. Their faces froze. "This organization is working to block the Lakeside Development Project," I explained innocently. "The very project your investment group is funding. They'll be sending you updates on their progress in stopping the construction that would triple your investment. I know how passionate you are about where your name and money go." Aunt Linda's face reddened. Uncle Robert coughed uncomfortably. "Mom and Dad, your turn." I continued, smoothly handing them a flat rectangular package. They unwrapped it to find the calendar I had created. My mother flipped through it, her expression changing from curiosity to discomfort as she realized what each page represented. "It's a special memory calendar," I explained. "Each month features an important event in my life that you missed alongside a cousin's event you attended instead. See, here's my first major art exhibition opening right next to Sarah's housewarming that you drove 5 hours to attend. And here's my teaching award ceremony opposite Amanda's college graduation party you helped plan. I thought it would help you keep track of whose milestones matter." My father wouldn't meet my eyes. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. "Sarah, I think you'll appreciate the thought behind this one," I said, handing her a square package. She unwrapped it to find the framed photograph of herself wearing my grandmother's necklace at her office Christmas party, the one she had borrowed 3 years ago, and never returned, despite my numerous requests. "I thought since you love that necklace so much you decided to keep it permanently, you might like a professional quality photo to remember it by," I said sweetly. The engraving reads, "Some borrowed things are never returned." Isn't that thoughtful? Sarah's face flushed with embarrassment as everyone turned to look at her. "And finally, Uncle Robert, something special just for you." I handed him the photo book I had created. He opened it and nearly dropped it when he saw what was inside. Page after page of screenshots from his social media accounts. Every inappropriate comment, every politically incorrect joke, every embarrassing late-night post he thought no one had noticed. "I call it the unfiltered Robert," I said. a collection of moments you shared with the world and then tried to forget. I thought it would be meaningful to preserve them. There's even a QR code that links to a private website where they're all archived digitally. The password is your birthday, easy to remember. A heavy silence fell over the room. No one moved. No one spoke. They all stared at their thoughtful gifts with expressions ranging from shock to anger to shame. "What is the meaning of this, Hailey?" Aunt Linda finally demanded, her voice tight with controlled rage. I looked around at them all, meeting each pair of eyes directly before I answered. "For years, I've watched you all exchange thoughtful, often expensive gifts, while I receive items that were clearly afterthoughts. Dollar store trinkets, re-gifted items with other people's names still attached, used books, clearance candles with the stickers still on. I've opened presents that made it painfully clear I wasn't worth your time, thought, or consideration." I reached into my purse and pulled out the notebook page I had photocopied from my mother's gift expense records. "I've seen the numbers written in your own hand, Mom. $350 for Sarah's birthday, $500 for Aunt Linda and Uncle Robert's anniversary, $12.99 for my Christmas gift." I laid the paper on the coffee table where everyone could see it. I've tried to talk about it and been dismissed as materialistic and ungrateful. I've tried to ignore it and focus on the joy of giving rather than receiving. But year after year, celebration after celebration, the message has been consistent and clear. I am worth less than everyone else in this family. My voice remained steady despite the emotions churning inside me. So this year, I decided to give you all gifts that reflected the same level of thoughtfulness you've shown me. Gifts that are personalized, yes, but in a way that makes you feel small, embarrassed, and undervalued. Exactly how I felt opening your gifts for years. "This is outrageous." Uncle Robert sputtered, his face turning an alarming shade of red. "Completely inappropriate and disrespectful." "Is it?" I asked quietly. "More inappropriate than giving your niece a used book with someone else's name written inside. More disrespectful than forgetting her birthday entirely. More outrageous than deciding as a family that one person isn't worth the same consideration as everyone else. You're blowing this out of proportion." My mother interjected, though her voice lacked conviction. "No one meant anything by it." "That's exactly the problem," I replied. "You didn't mean anything by it because I don't mean enough to you to consider how your actions make me feel. I'm an afterthought in my own family." "If you wanted better gifts, you should have chosen a better career," Aunt Linda said coldly. "We reward success in this family." And there it was, the truth finally spoken aloud. "Thank you for your honesty, Aunt Linda," I said, a strange calm settling over me. "At least now we all know where we stand. My worth in this family is measured by my income, not by who I am as a person or what I contribute beyond money." I stood up, gathering my purse and coat. "Merry Christmas, everyone. Enjoy your thoughtful gifts." The silence that followed my statement was deafening. No one moved as I stood with my coat and purse prepared to leave. Then, as if a spell had been broken, everyone started speaking at once. "How dare you embarrass us like this?" Aunt Linda's voice rose above the others, her face flushed with indignation. "After everything we've done for you?" "What exactly have you done for me, Aunt Linda?" I asked, my voice steady. "Give me clearance items with the stickers still attached. Regift things you received and didn't want. Please enlighten me about your generosity." Uncle Robert slammed the photo book shut. "This is a violation of privacy," he seethed. "You had no right to compile these posts." "They were public posts, Uncle Robert. You shared them with the entire internet. I just put them in a convenient format so you could remember them as clearly as everyone else does." My mother stood wringing her hands. "Hailey, please. This isn't like you. You've always been such a good, understanding girl." "You're right, Mom. I have been understanding, too understanding. For years, I've accepted being treated as less valuable than everyone else in this family. I've smiled and thanked you for gifts that made it clear you put no thought into them, while watching you lavish attention and generosity on everyone else." I pulled out the keychain I had found in the donation box. "Did you think I wouldn't notice that this was meant for someone named Jessica and headed for donation before you decided it was good enough for me?" My mother had the grace to look ashamed. Sarah hadn't spoken yet. She sat clutching the framed photo, her expression unreadable. "Is this really about the necklace?" she finally asked. "No, Sarah. It's not about the necklace. It's about the fact that something that mattered deeply to me, that had sentimental value beyond any price tag, wasn't important enough for you to return, despite my asking repeatedly. It's about the pattern of disregard that everyone in this room has shown me." My cousin Amanda, who had been quiet throughout the exchange, finally spoke up. "She's not wrong," she said softly. "We've all seen it happening for years. The difference in how Hailey is treated compared to the rest of us. None of us said anything, but we all knew." Aunt Linda turned on her. "Don't you start too." "It's true, Mom," Amanda insisted. "Last Christmas, you spent hundreds on my spa package and got Hailey a candle from the grocery store. How is that fair?" "Life isn't fair," Uncle Robert interjected. "Some people make choices that lead to success. Others don't." "I am successful," I said firmly. "I'm a respected teacher who shapes young minds daily. I'm an artist whose work has been featured in exhibitions. I've built a life that brings me fulfillment and joy. The fact that you measure success solely in dollars says more about your values than my choices." My father, who had been uncharacteristically silent, finally spoke. "Hailey, I think you've made your point. Perhaps we should all take some time to cool off." "That's your solution, Dad. To sweep it under the rug like always. To hope that if you ignore it long enough, I'll go back to quietly accepting being treated as less than." I looked around at all of them. I'm not asking for expensive gifts. I'm asking to be treated with the same consideration and thoughtfulness as everyone else in this family. To have my achievements acknowledged, to be valued for who I am, rather than what I earn or what career path I've chosen. James had been right about one thing. The confrontation hadn't led to instant understanding and reconciliation, but it had broken the silence. The issue was now in the open, impossible to ignore or dismiss. "I'm going to leave now," I said, putting on my coat. "I've said what I needed to say. What happens next is up to all of you." As I walked to the door, I heard footsteps behind me. It was Amanda. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "for noticing and never speaking up. You deserved better." "Thank you," I replied, genuinely touched by her acknowledgement. I drove home in silence, emotions swirling. I felt lighter having finally spoken my truth, but uncertain about what would follow. The family group chat remained silent for the rest of the day. No calls, no texts. It was as if I had dropped a bomb, and everyone was still assessing the damage. The next morning, my phone started lighting up. The first message was from Sarah, surprisingly. "You're right about the necklace. I've had it all along. I'll drop it off tomorrow." "I'm sorry." Then came a text from my mother. "We need to talk. Your father and I have been discussing what you said. You raised some valid points." Aunt Linda and Uncle Robert maintained their silence, which didn't surprise me. They had always been the most rigid, the most judgmental about my career choices. Over the following week, individual conversations began. My mother and father came to my apartment awkward, but making an effort. My mother brought the notebook with her gift expenses, showing me a new page where she had crossed out the old amounts and written equal figures for everyone. "We didn't realize how it looked," she admitted. "Or maybe we did and didn't want to admit it. Either way, it was wrong. I'm sorry, Hailey." My father, less comfortable with emotional conversations, added, "Your mother and I are proud of you. We should have shown that better. We got caught up in comparing bank accounts instead of character." Sarah returned my grandmother's necklace as promised, along with a heartfelt apology. "I kept it because it's beautiful, and I was jealous that Grandma left it to you instead of me. That was petty, and I'm sorry." Amanda and I had coffee and a long conversation about family dynamics and the courage to speak up. "You changed something," she told me. "The way you stood up for yourself. It made me think about times I've stayed silent when I should have spoken." Aunt Linda and Uncle Robert were the holdouts, maintaining that I had been disrespectful and owed them an apology. I didn't offer one. Some relationships would take longer to heal. Some might never be the same. 6 months after what my family now reluctantly referred to as the Christmas incident, much had changed in our family dynamics. Some of those changes were painful, others healing, but all were necessary. My relationship with my parents underwent the most significant transformation. Our conversations became more honest, more direct. They made visible efforts to show interest in my teaching career, and art attending my end-of-year student exhibition, and asking thoughtful questions about my work. For my birthday in May, they gave me a set of professional grade paints I had mentioned wanting, and tickets to an art exhibition in Chicago I had been excited about. The gifts weren't extravagant, but they were thoughtful, and that made all the difference. Sarah and I rebuilt our relationship on more equal footing. The return of my grandmother's necklace had been symbolic of a larger shift. She stopped treating me with casual dismissal and started engaging with me as a peer, whose life choices, while different from hers, were equally valid. We began a tradition of monthly sister-cousins dinners, with Amanda creating space for connection outside the larger family gatherings. Aunt Linda and Uncle Robert remained the most resistant to change. After 2 months of silence, Aunt Linda called me. "I still think you were out of line with those gifts," she said without preamble. "But Robert and I have been talking. Perhaps we haven't been as considerate of you as we could have been." It wasn't quite an apology, but from Aunt Linda, it was significant. The ice began to thaw slowly between us. They still made occasional comments about my career choices, but they were less frequent, less cutting. The most profound change came in how our family approached gift-giving in general. Amanda suggested we try a Secret Santa approach for the next holiday, with a set budget that everyone had to adhere to. The focus shifted from the monetary value of gifts to their thoughtfulness. It was a simple change, but a meaningful one, that equalized the experience for everyone. Through therapy with Dr. Martinez, I gained deeper insight into why the gift disparity had affected me so deeply. Gifts in my family had never been just gifts. They were symbols of value, of worth, of belonging. Being given thoughtless presents while watching others receive carefully selected items had triggered core insecurities about my place in the family hierarchy. The gifts were just the visible symptom of a deeper issue, Dr. Martinez observed. They made concrete what you felt intuitively, that your family was assigning different values to different members based on criteria that had nothing to do with character or love. Working through these realizations helped me establish healthier boundaries. I became more comfortable expressing my feelings directly, rather than suppressing them to keep the peace. When old patterns emerged, I addressed them immediately instead of letting resentment build. I also created new traditions with people who valued me consistently. James, who had supported me throughout the entire ordeal, became an even more important presence in my life. We established our own holiday rituals based on experiences rather than material exchanges. Zoe and my other close friends formed a chosen family, where celebrations centered around connection rather than consumption. My art took on new dimensions as I processed these experiences. I created a series exploring family dynamics and gift-giving as expressions of power and value. The exhibition, titled "Worth," received critical acclaim and helped me transform my pain into something meaningful. The first family gathering after the Christmas incident was Easter at my parents' home. The tension was palpable as we navigated our new reality. The gift exchange was modest, with everyone receiving items of similar value and thought. I received a book about an artist I admired from my mother, who had taken the time to research what I might enjoy. The relief I felt at being treated equally nearly brought me to tears. By the following Christmas, we had established new patterns. Secret Santa assignments were drawn at Thanksgiving. The spending limit was set at $50 for everyone. The focus shifted to the thought behind the gift, rather than its price tag. I drew Uncle Robert's name and spent weeks finding a first edition of a mystery novel by his favorite author. When he opened it, genuine surprise and pleasure crossed his face. "This is incredibly thoughtful, Hailey," he said, examining the book carefully. "How did you know I've been looking for this?" "I pay attention," I replied simply. The moment felt like a victory, not because I had proven anything, but because it represented the possibility of change. People could learn to see each other more clearly, to value each other more fairly if they were willing to examine their patterns and prejudices. As I reflect on this journey now, I understand that the unique gifts I gave that Christmas weren't really about revenge, though that element was certainly present. They were about holding up a mirror and refusing to be invisible any longer. They were about demanding the recognition that everyone deserves within their family. The recognition that says, I see you, I value you, you matter as much as anyone else here. The most important gift I gave myself through this experience was the understanding that my worth isn't determined by how others value me. It comes from within, from staying true to my passions and principles, from creating a life that feels meaningful to me regardless of external validation. Family relationships are complex, layered with history and expectation. Mine remain a work in progress. Some wounds have healed completely, others have formed scars that still twinge occasionally. But the festering resentment that had been growing for years has been lanced and cleansed. In its place is something healthier, more honest, and ultimately more loving. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself and your family? Did it change things for the better or create more problems? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, recognizing your own worth is the first step toward having others recognize it too. Thank you for listening to my story, and may your own family gatherings be filled with genuine appreciation for who you truly are.